everyone, welcome to today's Move Better Every Day, half an hour. Today's focus is going to be on the hips, and we're going to start with our nice, trusty, hard seated chair. So let's start sitting. So nice and comfortable. Hips obviously really important. I feel like I've worked my way down the body this last couple of sessions. So we started with the neck the other day, then we moved into the thoracic rib cage spine, and now we're looking at hips and just some things to get everything mobilised, strengthened, get the blood flow to the hips. Because what's really important with the hips is our pelvis, and our pelvis being in a neutral position. I have done a short video on how to find neutral pelvis in standing and lying on your back in the supine position, and I'll add those links in below. But for today, this is Move Better Every Day. This is in your everyday clothes. I've got stretchier trousers on today, and just finding out what's going on, getting that pelvis and the hips moving and all warmed up. So, thinking about neutral pelvis, so when you're seated on a nice hard chair, you're sitting right on top of those sit bones, and if I turn sideways, hopefully you can see that my back is in its natural curves. That's the whole point of a neutral pelvis. So sitting a little bit towards the front of your seat if you can, and let's just take a pelvic tilt. So we're going to draw the belly button in tight towards the spine, tuck the pelvis under, and if you're aware of your sit bones, you go sort of behind your sit bones, and then come back through a neutral, and then tilt forwards and arch your back. So from the front, you're probably not seeing much difference in my body, my torso, but if I turn completely to the side, so this is me in my neutral. Look at my side seam is nice and straight from my ear all the way down, but I've got the natural curves in my spine, and then I'm going to tuck under. Draw my belly button in, round my pelvis, so it makes my back into a bit of a C curve, but I'm not really thinking about upper body, I'm just thinking about the pelvis mainly. Come through the neutral and then overarch. The overarching, this might not feel very pleasant for you. So don't do anything that doesn't feel pleasant, but if you can, just get it moving. Exploring which muscles you need to switch on to make that movement happen. So I'm thinking about drawing my lower abdomen, the skin between your belly button and your pubic bone. Pull that away. Imagine your hand is boiling hot and you're trying not to get your skin burnt, or the naked flame being held there, and you're drawing it all in. Not switching on your buttocks at all. This is very, very internal, very deep abdominal muscles. Pelvic floor will be getting a little bit involved as well. And then let's look at shortening in your waist. So this is called hitching your hips. So if I put my hands on my hips, actually, I'm going to just lift one side off and then lift the other side off. So one side, I'm talking about my buttock. I'm lifting my buttock off by shortening in my waist, and I have to shift my weight over a little bit into the side that's staying on the chair. So shortening in the waist, shortening in the waist. So I'm sort of taking, this is like a semicircle for me. It feels like a semicircle. If you look down at your knees, they're staying at the same level. They're not shifting. One's not lifting or lowering. One's not going in front or behind the other one. That's going to be for the next movement. So the next movement is rotation. So with your sit bones equally in contact on the chair seat, pull one back and let the other one roll forwards. So, and if you place your hands on your shoulders and your ribs pretty much stay still, but I'm ending up, if I look down now, I've got one knee in front of the other, and then I'm switching over. Because I'm touching my knees and my shoulders are moving, my shoulders are joining in a bit as well. I'm going to no, it doesn't really help with this angle. But yeah, if you look down, you should be ending up with one knee in front of the other. But there's no change here. I'm not shortening, I'm not lifting up, I'm equally weighted. So that whole pelvis is rotating around your spine. So that's what the movement we want for rotation. Okay, so let's add tackle those movements together. So tucking the pelvis under. Think now about your sit bones. So you've gone past your sit bones, behind your sit bones if you like. Roll around the outside edge of one. Come forward so that you're in front of both sit bones. Roll across to the other side. Roll around the outside edge of the other sit bone. And your ribs will just be following you around, going for the ride. Ribs and head going around. So as I go back, there's that pelvic tilt. As I go to the side, the opposite side is lifting up a little bit. It's not because I'm shortening, it's because I'm trying to just go around the outside edge of my sit bone. Forwards all the way. And also if you think about this, your head, your ribs, your upper body is forming your plumb line. You're creating like a circle around, drawing a circle. So go the other way now. We always have one direction which is instinctively quite comfortable and relatively easy, and then when you go to do the other way, especially when you're doing figure of eights, which we're going to do in a moment, it really is a lot more challenging. So it's good to do both ways. It's good to do both sides. It's good to wake up all those motor neurons. And this is what this is all about. Just moving better every day, getting your body more used to moving in all different directions, all planes of motion, getting the limbs and everything, the tendons, the tissue, keeping it alive by moving into the positions which we don't normally go into. We get very stuck and very fixed in a box. Perfect. Okay, we're going to stand up. I'm just going to put the chair slightly to one side, just so that I stay back here. We're going to use the chair again in a moment. And let's repeat those movements. So let's start with the pelvic tilt. I'm going to go slightly to the side. So you have to bend your knees a little bit, just to give a little bit of space for the pelvis to move. I didn't do it today, and it's the first time I haven't done it. Reaches up. And the reason we do reaches up is to lengthen the spine, but also to lift the rib cage off of the hips so that you can create the space for you to be able to move your hips around. So maybe place your hands around your rib cage just for the moment. Lift everything up, slightly bend the knees, soften the knees. Now take that pelvic tilt, really tucking under, coming through your neutral position, and then arching the lower back. Tucking, under, and arching. So I talk about a bucket of water analogy. When you're in your neutral position, pubic bone and hip bones are on the same plane. The bucket of water is absolutely full to the brim. When you take this pelvic tilt, when you tuck under, as I call it, you lose water out of the back of the bucket, come through your neutral, not losing any water, arch the lower back, lose water out of the front of your bucket. Good. Then let's go for the hip hitches. So, and again, knees need to be bent slightly, and I'm shortening in my waist. So I'm lifting this up, lifting this hip up, that's what I was trying to say, and then lifting the other hip up, lifting the hip up, and lifting the hip up. So if I put my hands there, but this is the reason I've worn this top as well today, a contrasting top so that you can see this line. When I'm level and equal, the line is parallel, the contrasting top is parallel to the floor. I'm shortening. This side is coming up slightly higher, shortening. And now, as I look down, it looks like I'm straightening one leg. I'm not straightening one leg, but the leg is lengthening because I'm shortening here. Ribs are staying absolutely still. Good. And so then the last movement is our rotation. So this is really quite different. If you pop your hands on the front of your hips and have your elbows out to the side, again, slightly soften the knees, make sure the rib cage is lifted. Now we're going to rotate the pelvis. In fact, let's pop the hands here. So pop the hands here with your thumbs at the back and your forefinger forwards a little bit. And I want you to rotate your pelvis around in your hands. That makes sense. So I'm allowing my hands are staying in the same position, but I'm turning my pelvis within that. So it's like your hands are the jam jar lid, and your pelvis, your torso, is the glass jar, the jam jar, if that makes any sense at all, as opposed to this, because we're trying to isolate the hips. So if I keep my hands fixed, so try this as well, if you keep your hands fixed and in contact with your waist, or your hips, sorry, as you go from side to side, now everything else is joining in. So the point of today is to isolate the hips. Just get the hips moving on their own. So yes, my knees are going to join in a little bit, but in general, my chest is staying still, my elbows are staying out to the side, roughly, and I'm isolating that pelvis around the spine, which is the really, really key bit. Fantastic. Okay, let's take, so we've done standing, we've done pelvic tilts, we've done hitches, and then we've done rotation. Let's take a full pelvic circle, but we're going to do these 2 ways. We're going to take them quite small to start with. So again, bend your knees slightly. So take that pelvic tilt, circle around. Keep this quite subtle. Imagine you're still moving around on that chair seat and then going the other way. Maybe take your arms out to the side, maybe pop your hands on your ribs to keep the ribs still. So from the side, I'm going as far as I can. It might look like I'm switching on my buttocks here, but I'm not. This is actually all just hanging. Not ideal, but it is. Because basically you don't need to use your buttock muscles to take this movement. When we're taking this smaller one, you might need to in a moment. So ribs are staying still, upper body is staying still, lifted the rib cage off of the hips and then circling all the way around. Make sure you've gone in both directions. Perfect. Okay, a harder, bigger version of that. So legs a little bit wider maybe. Now try and keep your legs fairly straight. Don't have to be completely straight. And now I call this hula hoop hips. Imagine you've got a hula hoop around your hips and you're trying to push your hips, your pelvis into the edge, the inside edge of that hula hoop all the way round. Fantastic for the waist. Changing direction. And you're going to notice all of everything sort of, just all the tendons, the joints, the fascia, it's all sort of rubbing and rolling over each other, which is fine. That's absolutely perfect. This is exactly what we want. We want to get blood flow there. We want to keep all of that tissue alive. So the hardest part of this, I find, is this pushing the hips all the way forwards. I'm very good at sticking the bottom out behind me, and I do that all the time. So this one, just opening up the front of these hips, and that's where we're going to have a little stretch there as well. Good, let's try that. This is really quite difficult. So taking the same amount of circles, so bring your feet much closer together, almost together, but not completely together. Do your hula hoop hips. It's going to be maybe a little bit smaller. And then stand on one leg. If you can, have the other leg completely in the air. But if you need to have a bit of balance, and you could use the back of a chair for a bit of support as well, or a wall or whatever, but just have 1 or 2 fingers on there so you're not really relying on it. And then we're going to try and take standing on one leg, those hips in that same size circle, so the narrower circle. And actually when I've got one finger on the back of the chair, I can leave this leg to dangle and changing direction. So it might start to be getting a little bit uncomfortable on your lower back. I'm definitely aware of my lower back, it's not uncomfortable, but this is just showing you how everything is connected. And although we're focusing on the hips on their own, let's try the other leg. I'm going to try and do it without the chair this time. It's all interconnected. One part being stiff is going to make another area not function as well, not be able to move as well. So this side, I haven't got my hands on anything for support, but I've just got my big toe touching on the floor. So try and go all the way around the inside of that hula hoop if you can. Fantastic, give those legs a bit of a shake. Brilliant, okay, let's look at some compression in the front of your hips. So coming back to the chair, might go slightly this way actually. So we're going to take nice wide stance, toes are going out to the corners, we're sending the bottom back, we're hinging from the hips. So the idea with your hip hinge, it's in the sit to stand version of these classes, the Move Better Every Day, is such an important movement. But the idea for the initial hip hinge is that your pelvis doesn't change. The shape of your spine doesn't change. So from the top of my head to my sacrum, it stays the same. And what I'd like you to do is be a little bit in front of your chair, feet really nice and wide, turn the legs out slightly, make sure your knees are going over your toes, send your bottom back, and if you can, just brush your butt on the edge of the chair. So hopefully you could quite easily sit down and come back up again, but I don't want you to completely sit down. We're looking to work the hip joint at the front, we're looking to compress the hip joint in a moment, but mainly I want you to be able to send your bottom back. So if you need to sit down, it's not the end of the world, but try not to. We're basically working towards a nice deep squat with those knees above your ankles, not with your knees forwards. Some of you might be able to do this, have your knees all the way forwards here and still have your heels down. I can't because I've got rubbish Achilles. So the movement I'm looking for is to send that bottom back. So this might be where you want to stay. If you can though, I'd like you to actually take the chair a little bit further away, or maybe move to settee or something so that it's a bit lower, so you've still got that seat to sit down on if you need to. And especially if deep squats aren't quite your thing just yet. But basically now I'm aiming for a deeper squat and then coming up. So you get to this point where when I talk about a deeper squat, I'm talking about the hips being lower than your knees, if you can. And that's when you really start to feel this compression in the hips, and that's the bit that we're after. So I'm going to go down and keeping the back up as low as I can. So if you're happy with a full deep squat, you might be able to be here. And then I would just like you to have a little transfer of weight from side to side. If that doesn't suit you, and it's not particularly comfortable for me, take your hands onto the floor, underneath your shoulders, maybe lift your hips up a little bit. But still keep that compression, keep that there's a real squishing going on in the front of your hips, and that's good, that's what we want. And then just take a tiny shift from side to side. If you can, lower your hips down a little bit. Most importantly, you might want to be here, you might want to push those knees out towards the side, out away towards your little toes. That will help to open up your hips a little bit more. It will help you get your bottom a little bit lower. Try and keep the back up as much as possible. Brilliant. So we're just compressing in the front of that hip, and then we're going to stretch that in a moment. Great. So I'm going to place my hands back down onto the floor. You could come up out of your deep squat if you can, but I'm choosing to come up this way. Hands on the floor, lift your hips. Take an unravel of your spine to come all the way up to the top. Great. Okay, looking at a little bit more mobilisation now in those hips, and with a nice hip flexor stretch at the front of your hips, which is one of the 10 things to do every day. So deep squats, one of the 10 things to do every day. Hip flexor stretch, the front of our hips, one of the 10 things to do every day. So this next movement is we're going to take a ballet plie. You're turning your legs out completely in your hip socket, and my heels are really quite wide apart. And then I'm bending my knees, so my knees are going over my toes. So I'm doing this standing because I can, my legs are strong enough. You could be seated, that's absolutely fine. So just seated on the front edge of your chair, and you're just going to stand and lower down again. So if you're sitting down, there's going to be a little bit of a slight hip hinge, a tiny hip hinge. But the most important thing is that those knees are going over the toes. So if you can, dropping down, coming back up again. So I've just come slightly forwards of my chair, and my butt is just brushing the edge of the chair. Make sure knees are going over the toes. If you can see yourself in front of the screen, make sure you've got good symmetry, so you're not favouring one side or the other. One knee, one ankle isn't rolling in. Push out. A few of these, this is always the ooh-ah moment in the class, if you haven't done them for a little while, or maybe you haven't done class since the week before, and this is the first time you've come back to doing some ballet pliés, and it's like, oh yes, that needs a little bit of stretching and warming up, but great stretching, mobilising, compressing in the hip joint, getting the blood flow there. That's the bit that we're interested in. Okay, so staying down, again this is quite strong. If you can, I want you to turn one leg all the way in, and I've actually turned my hips to face that way as well, and then turn that leg out, and then turn in and turn out. That's really strong on the legs, so you can do this seated here. In fact, let's do it seated, because this isn't meant to be a big workout, it's meant to be just a mobilising thing. So sitting on the edge of your chair, turn. So as I turn, I'm dropping this knee in. This leg is already facing that way, so that's perfect. I'm turning my hips and my shoulders that way as well. And then turn everything out. So turn this leg, thigh, within the hip socket. So my back buttock is still on the chair, so it's really quite comfortable. And opening out. And again, drop that knee down. Drop the knee down. Good. And one more. Let's stay here on that second side. And you're just going to, so there's a couple of things you can do here. You could just stay in this exact same position, but really try now and tuck your pelvis under. So I'm exaggerating that a little bit. This is me, I'm slightly overarching, but now I want you to tuck the pelvis under, and it will give you a wicked stretch along the front of this hip. That is your hip flexors. That's the bit that we need to stretch. So that's already quite strong for me. My hip flexors are generally quite tight. If you want to work a little bit more, place the back hand on the chair, lift your hip off, straighten that back leg, but try and stay tucked under. And that really is quite strong. So in class we would be down here, and you would maybe lift the chest up. You could take a little extra lift of the chest, left of the chest. Good, that's today's little rhyme. And then opening out, let's try that on the other side. So that's quite strong on that hip. Turn to the side, be comfortable first of all. And even if you're doing a more advanced one, start here. Find your biting point for your stretches, even in an easier position for you. So I'm in my neutral, and then I'm going to tuck my pelvis under. And you can see my hips are so tight that knee's coming forwards as well. But I'm getting a wicked stretch at the front of my hips. Holding it there, breathing. Everything is quite warm. It's going to be a little bit warmer in a moment. And then if you want to take that into a slightly more advanced stretch, come off of the chair, sink down a little bit more. Try and keep that pelvic tilt. It really doesn't go very far. It doesn't want to. There isn't any scope for it to go, but you're trying to keep that back leg straight, and then you're lifting your chest and maybe dropping your hips down a bit. But I'm supported with my back hand on the chair, so it doesn't feel too vulnerable. It's just a very strong stretch. This is so strong, it's actually wrapping round the corner of my groin as well, which is perfect. Brilliant. Okay, standing up. So a couple more things to do. Bit of mobilising. Get the chair out of the way again. So we're going to draw a figure of 8. This is all figures of 8s and figures of 4s now to finish off. So we're going to draw a figure of 8 on the floor. So standing on one leg. There's lots of things going on here. Imagine your figure of 8. So just draw it with your other foot. There's a circle in front of your other foot, the standing leg, and then there's a circle behind your standing leg. About a football size circle is what I would recommend. So circle and circle. Now at the level with the middle of your standing foot is the crisscross point of your figure of 8. So circle and circle, and off you go. So you will naturally go your most comfortable way. Now, what I want you to try and do with this is sort of lead, you're drawing a circle with your foot, but you're sort of leading with your knee, and then because you're leading with your knee, your hip is going to follow you. So as I'm drawing in to cross over, that knee is going forwards, and then I'm circling, I'm opening out the knee and the hip. So I'm trying to get this moving leg to be moving around in that hip socket as much as possible. And that's quite a lot of stress and strain on the standing leg, but that's good. That's what we want. So standing leg is working hard to try and stabilise you. The moving leg is working hard to mobilise and to just really try and get into the corners and the edges. Here's the weird thing. Reverse your figure of 8. So I'm going to draw my circle behind first and then la la la. Yeah, if you've gone straight into it, you probably haven't reversed your figure of 8. You've probably just gone back into the first direction. I really have to think about this. Good. So think about try and keep the same sort of size figure of 8 on the floor. Lead with the knee. Well, actually, you're sort of, yeah, when you go back, I'm leading with my heel, it feels like. In fact, almost leading with the heel all the way. Woo, okay, brilliant. And give that leg a little bit of a rest. Let's try the other side. So, same thing, draw your circle. So the most natural for me is to go forwards and outwards and then draw the circle behind. So my standing leg is parallel. I'm not being too picky with it. I'm letting the knee is slightly soft, which helps me to balance. If the knee's completely locked out, that's going to make everything too rigid. And then, once you've got that pattern, so notice also what's happening with my upper body. It will naturally happen. If you're a salsa dancer, you'll be totally used to this movement anyway. But your arms, your ribs will naturally go in the opposite direction to keep you balanced. But you don't even need to think about that. That's going to naturally happen. So think about that knee leading. How much can you move that thigh bone in and around in that ball and socket joint of your hip? Remember, it's a ball and socket joint. Really important. Okay, let's change direction. I'm going to go that way out and first. Yes. Whoa. So consistently drawing the same size figure of 8, moving at the same pace, but just so much more challenging for the brain going the other way. But if you don't overthink it, it will happen. And I'm having a little bit of a struggling to balance on this side as well, getting tired basically. This leg is, so this was the first, no, it wasn't the first standing leg, I'm lying. But anyway, getting a bit tired. So if there's a little bit of a tipping over in the upper body, absolutely fine. Just try and stay on the one leg. See, now there, I lost my concentration because I was talking about that bit, and then automatically I went back to my natural way with that figure of 8. So keep an eye on that sort of thing. Okay, give those legs a bit of a shake. Brilliant. We're going to finish off with 2 amazing stretches for your hips. First one we're going to do standing, and then we're going to take it seated. Yes, so figure of 4 stretch. So stretch your tighter side for your hips first. Which is your tighter side, which is your weaker side? If you're right-handed, right-footed, probably your left hip is tighter because it's always pushing off. Might not be, but I know that my right leg is weaker for one leg standing, my left leg is stronger. Usually with strength comes tightness. So that's my left side is definitely my tighter hip. So that's the one I'm going to do first. I'm just going to have my hand on the wall, back of the chair, whatever, a little bit of support, but not too much. Cross that ankle above the knee if you can, bend the knee and stick your bottom out, but don't be down here and don't be rounded. Your pelvis, actually, to make this an effective stretch, your pelvis needs to be in neutral. And a lot of things that we do when we're trying to stretch, you need to be in a neutral postural position for it to work. Otherwise, and then you can try this here. So if you're in the position, you're feeling this nice stretch on this outside hip and glutes, perfect. You're using your muscles to push this knee down and away a little bit, but don't push it on with your hand. Stick your bottom out more, will increase the stretch, maybe lift the chest a little bit more. But now let your back collapse, let that pelvis tuck under, and suddenly the stretch is completely gone. That's what I mean about being in a neutral position. So stick your bottom out. Ideally, so I would also recommend hanging on to something here, not hanging on, but having a little bit of support so that you're not trying to balance and do this stretch, which is why it's nice when it's seated as well. Let's try the other side. So noticing for yourself. Oh, see, today my right hip actually feels quite tight compared to left. So stick the bottom out, lift the chest a little bit, bend your supporting leg, bend that knee, push your knee down with your muscle. So if your knee's up here, it's not going to work, it's not going to be effective. You want that rotation outwards. Try the collapsing, round the back, let your pelvis just tuck under, all gone for me, completely no stretch whatsoever, just a weird position. Great, and standing, give us a little bit of a shake. Finish off with that exact same thing, seated. We're going to go slightly to the corner. So start with your tighter side. So if you've established that your tighter side wasn't the one you thought it was, do your tighter side first this time. So nice and upright. Bring your, let's bring your foot that's on the floor in the middle. Sit nice and upright. So again, if you're back here, if that spine's rounded, it's not going to work. Sit as upright as possible. Pushing that knee down, but using your muscles. And then this is really quite tough. So we're effectively doing the same stretch we just did. Maybe a little bit easier in the chair, maybe not. And now just see if you can round over your spine and just walk your hands down your legs sort of towards the floor. And you're basically just keeping that leg in the same position. This is a very strong stretch for me. Ideally, keep your shoulders nice and level. And breathe. And then unravel the spine. And that might be too much on the lower back as well. In fact, let's when we do the other side, just notice the difference. Foot on the floor is opposite my hip. And then I'm sitting nice and upright, pushing this knee down. Maybe try and pitch forwards a little bit, but don't let that pelvis tuck under. Keep your spine nice and neutral. And now bring the foot into the middle more, so it's closer to your central line, your plumb line. Now round your back over, and you're just trying to get nice and low. Woo, and that's really, I really feel that one. Shoulders level. And breathe. And then rolling up through the spine. Ooh, putting those legs down. Well done. Thank you so much. That was Move Better Every Day for healthy hips. Let me know how that feels, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you. Ooh, what a nice downward dog stretch.